These are days and nights of red and blood. Heroes will rise as the anchors fall.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Cypher and welcome to this Nightblade build video for patch 1.5 up until 1.6. As you all know, once 1.6 comes into the game, there's going to be so many changes that everyone's pretty much going to have to change their build. So what me and a few Nightblades are going to do is, once 1.6 hits PTS, we're going to go in there and do some testings with new builds, and we're going to also try incorporating this build into 1.6. And if we can't do that, we're going to scrap it completely and come up with something new. But I just want to give you guys this build video until 1.6 comes out, which is due to come out either late January or early February. No one really knows exactly what date it is, but that's the range that we're given. And before I start, I just want to say this is a pretty popular build amongst most Nightblades, but the actual playstyle behind this build is what makes it unique. The playstyle was made from Araxion. He's a legend officer, and he took this build, and he's the one who came up with the playstyle behind it. And I'll explain more about the particular playstyle, and it's not something you're going to get right off the bat. Over time, as you practice this build, you kind of start feeling the mojo behind it, but it's not an easy build to learn, and it's not something that you can pick up immediately and be good at. You're just going to have some patience and practice to master it. Now let's start off. I like to make these build videos really short. Hopefully this one can be short too. We have Impale. This is our long range execute. The reason you don't want to go with the heal, first of all, long range execute is great against anyone who's trying to run away, anyone who's trying to kite you, sorcerers who are blinking away. I can't count how many times I've executed a sorcerer who's low health because of this impale as they're blinking away. Now, the reason you don't want to go for the heal, particularly for this build, is you kind of want to keep your health topped off. A lot of the times you're going to have low health on this build, depending on how glass cannon you want to go. Sometimes people go as low as 2400, 2300. You can go higher if you don't feel comfortable with that. But if you're going to go glass cannon, you're going to want to make sure you have healing ward up the whole time. You're going to make sure you want to have rapid regen up the whole time. So you want your health topped off. So you don't want to be in a position where you have to rely on a heal, an execute heal in particular. Surprise attack. Since we're not really going invisible as much in this build, yeah, we have Shadow Cloak here, but I'll get to that later. Surprise attack lowers people's armor. So this makes you effective not against light armor users, and you'll also be effective against heavy armor users. So it increases your DPS, and it's great. It's great for the DPS boost that you're gonna get by reducing your opponent's armor, because surprise attack goes off armor anyways. Even though it costs magicka, it's one of those unique abilities that go based off of armor, not spell resistance. Ambush. This is probably one of the best skills in this build, because first of all, it's your mobility. You're going to be able to jump from target to target even while you're rooted. It also gives you a 36% additional damage to your next attack, and that's where you're going to get the ambush to surprise attack combo, ambush to ultimate combo. That's where you get most of your burst DPS. So ambush is something that you should use a lot in this build because it boosts your DPS and it helps you knock out targets quickly. And that's the main goal for this build, to knock out targets quickly and move on to the next target. It doesn't have a lot of AoE, so you want to take advantage of the fact that you can kill someone fast enough before their friends can react and then move on and kill their friends. Mass Hysteria. This is probably, actually, I take that back. Ambush is not the best ability in this game, or in this build. Mass Hysteria is probably the best ability in this game. It's a fear, 4.5 second fear, and it goes through block. It's the only CC that goes through block. So it's something that Nightblades should be proud about because it's very unique, it's very powerful, it has a nice radius, and it's extremely deadly if your opponent is out of stamina. And this build is great at draining your opponent out of stamina. That's how you win most of your 1v1 fights. You drain your opponent, you fear them, and then you finish them off. There's not much I can say. This is just a great skill overall. You have to have this in the majority of your Nightblade builds. If you don't have it, then you better have a really good excuse as to why you don't have it. Now, for this final skill, we have Dark Cloak. But as you can see in my Nightblade 1vx videos, I'm not actually using Dark Cloak. I am using Sap Essence. Now, this is interchangeable. If you want to jump in a big Zerg or be in those huge combat fights where Invisible is not going to help you, Dark Cloak is not going to help you, Sap Essence is great. It makes you really hard to kill, tanky, it builds ultimate, you're going to be able to drop veils left and right. There's a lot of good uses for Sap Essence, but if you kind of want to just play that rogue type, you want to do smaller scale combat, 1v1, 1v2, 1v3, 1v4, Shadow Cloak is your option. And I've been using Shadow Cloak in the past 2 streams of mine, and I really like the ability to go invisible and even sometimes escape. Dark Cloak does have its issues. There's still a few problems with it that needs to be addressed and fixed, but when you pull it off, it's definitely very gratifying, and it's a very powerful ability. Especially when you're wearing light armor and you have potions, you can usually keep it up for the majority of the fight if you need to get away. Now for your ultimate, Soul Harvest, the only reason now I'm using Soul Harvest as opposed to Soul Tether is they gave it a 20% boost for its damage, and it also has increased your damage by 20% for 6 seconds. So this is a very deadly ultimate, and it only costs 48. That's the big selling point for Soul Harvest versus Soul Tether. It only costs 48 ultimate. The only downside to it is it's might gated by armor as opposed to spell resistance, and I feel like a lot of the times when I hit someone with full heavy or medium armor, it barely does any damage. So, and it's also blockable, and Soul Tether isn't blockable, but that's why you can go back and forth between Soul Harvest and Soul Tether. Sometimes I love Soul Tether and I still use it, and sometimes I like Soul Harvest and I still use it. It just depends on how you're feeling. Usually I use Soul Harvest when I'm running Dark Cloak, and when I'm running Sap Essence I use Soul Tether because I'm able to build ultimate faster with my Sap Essence. So the 143 ultimate versus 48 is kind of overlooked by the fact that you can build ultimate quickly with Sap Essence. So it just depends on how you're feeling. Now let's go to our resto bar. We have Harness Magic and Healing Ward. Those are going to be our 2 shields and our heal, and we also have Rapid Regen to keep our health up. You're gonna want to use shields, especially on a Magicka-based Nightblade, given that we don't actually have shields on Nightblade. It's the only class that doesn't have a shield, so you have to make up for it by using non-class shields like Harness Magic and Healing Ward, and these will keep you alive for in most situations, 1v1, 1v2, 1v3, and they help you stay tanky. So I recommend you have these shields, and then of course Rapid Regen to keep your health topped off. Crippling Grasp. In the smaller scale combat, you want to spam this a lot because 1, it builds ultimate, 2, you can kite your opponent using it, and 3, it does a crap ton of dot damage. It's 640 magic damage over 8 seconds, and on impact it does 153. So it's definitely a lot of damage, and you can use it to root your opponents and kite them, or root them and then do a heavy attack with Resto to gain some Magicka. It's definitely a strong skill, and I like having it on my Resto just so when I switch to my Resto and I want to do a heavy Magicka, heavy Resto attack, I can cripple my target and then go for the heavy Resto. Now this is probably my favorite ability for Nightblade, Shadow Image. It's not the strongest, but it's definitely my favorite. If you've seen me use Shadow Image in my videos, you'll understand why. It's a great escape mechanic, especially if Dark Cloak is acting up. It's also great for positioning. You can put Shadow Image down, go jump off a key, go kill someone, and as long as you're within range, you can teleport back to your shadow. So it's great against groups. It also reduces incoming damage by 15% to whoever it's focused on. So it's definitely good for 1v1 as well. It's an overall great skill. The only problem I have with it is it does say 38 meter range in Cyrodiil, but it's actually 22 meters, and I don't know if that's a bug. It probably is a bug. Hopefully they fix that, because 38 meters versus 22 is a big difference. Now for your ultimate on your Resto Bar, Veil of Blades, this is just your really tanky ultimate. When you put this down and you put up a couple of shields, it's really hard for opponents to kill you. And I only usually use Veil of Blades when I'm running Sap Essence, because I drop Veil of Blades, I start spamming Sap Essence, and I build up enough ultimate to drop another Veil of Blades, and it's just a really strong combo. I'm pretty sure if you've seen my last Nightblade video, the first clip is me dropping a Veil of Blades and then building enough ultimate to cast a Soul Tether, and actually killed 5 people with 1 Soul Tether who was standing in my Veil of Blades. It does a lot of damage. It actually does 150 magic damage every 0.5 seconds. So compared to a standard, which sometimes does 150 up to 180 every second, this actually does it every 0.5 seconds. So the DPS is really high on this. It also snares, and you also take 60% less damage, incoming damage, while you're inside the Veil. So it's a very strong ultimate. Yes, it's small, but in those tight situations where you're being outnumbered, it can really save you. And that's it for the ultimate. I mean, that's it for the abilities and the 2 bars. We got Sword and Shield, we got Resto, we got Disease on both of them, of course, because Disease cuts your opponent's healing by 50%. Now, for the racial, some people are probably wondering why I'm a Khajiit. This account was initially made to be a ganker, so a stamina-based ganker, and Khajiit is alright for that. But for this particular build, you're probably better off. I'll give you some options: Breton, Redguard, Imperial, and Dark Elf. Of course, Dark Elf is just a very strong overall build all around. Even, I mean, some people say Dark Elf is only for Dragon Knights, but I think Dark Elf can work on almost any class, to be honest with you. So on my upcoming Nightblade that I'm making, it's actually an Imperial because I want to have the option to either go Magicka or Stamina if I need to, and Imperial passives are great for that. Alright, let's get into our armor sets. We're rocking 5 pieces of Warlock and 5 pieces of Seducer. So 2 pieces of Warlock and then 3 Warlock jewelry, and then 5 pieces of Seducer. What attributes should you put into these armor pieces? That's completely up to you. You want to aim for soft cap Magicka, and then when your health and stamina, you just have to adjust accordingly to what you feel more comfortable with. Some people can manage their stamina really easily, so they don't put as much into stamina. Some people need more health because they're getting one-shotted because they're not keeping their health up during the fights. So it just depends on what you feel, but I recommend that you at least soft cap or barely overcharge your Magicka for now, because you want to get that extra DPS. Now for our enchants on the rings, we have 2 spell damage and then 1 stamina recovery, and Nightblades have a 30% increase on their stamina recovery. So whenever you have a buff that increases your recovery, you want to take full advantage of that. You know, like I mentioned in my Dragon Knight video where we have the 30% buff to stamina recovery because of Dragon's Blood. So we put a stamina necklace, stamina recovery on our necklace because of that. And then Nightblades have a built-in 30% extra stamina recovery, so that's why we're going to put in the stamina recovery necklace. It says adds 18 stamina recovery, but in reality you're getting a lot more because of the 30% increase to your overall stamina pool. Now, that's for the enchants on the rings and necklaces. I mean, yeah, the rings and necklace. And then you have your sword and shield. You want to put disease on both your sword and your resto. Of course, disease cuts your opponent's healing in half, so it's always a great ability to proc. So whenever it does proc, you can stack it with maybe Soul Harvest for a 100% healing debuff, or you can just take advantage of the fact that your opponent can't heal as much and go in for a burst kill. The sword and shield are Thorax packed because that adds 9 spell damage, and we want to have our spell damage soft cap with this build. We have it actually a little above, actually no, 128, so we have it close to soft cap. And that's good enough for this build because you do have high Magicka and you do have ambush to increase your burst DPS. Now, that's all for this build. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to comment below. I will answer all your questions. Thank you again, Araxion, for designing the playstyle behind this build, and I'll keep you guys in touch with future updates to this build, any ideas for 1.6. Now, a few people might be asking about Undaunted pieces. If you want to fit Undaunted into this build, of course you're gonna have to sacrifice your head and your shoulders. So you sacrifice your head and your shoulders. You wear extra 2 pieces of Warlock. Either, you know, you put your Warlock shoes, Warlock belt, and then you fill in the Seducer set by sacrificing your Thorax Pact for a Seducer sword and shield. So you just be sacrificing some spell damage to make up for that. Or if you don't want to sacrifice spell damage, you can drop Seducer completely and go Magnus 5-piece with the 2-piece Undaunted and the 5-piece Warlock. And in that case, you'll be getting the 8% chance to negate the cost of a spell, but you wouldn't be sacrificing the spell damage. And that's probably what I would do, to be honest with you, if I had Undaunted set pieces. And almost all the Undaunted set pieces are great. You can fit them in pretty well. For this build in particular, I think the Ultimate set would be great. I also think the Life Leech set, the Soul Tether based one, would be great. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you have any comments, please comment below. I will see you guys very soon with another PvP video.